All right, guys. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for beaming in from Australia. I'm really looking forward. I've been really looking forward to actually this session with you guys, because I know a lot of the professional, the personal development stuff we focus on is, it's about being your best. It's about, dreaming big. It's about setting bigger goals, expanding yourself. But I think that with all that focus on that, you can actually end up stacking more and more and more into your life. And essentially, you can get yourself feeling a bit weighed down, and your performance starts to drop off. Essentially, what I've learned over the past few years, and essentially it started, I guess, as a professional skier until now, is it's not just what you do that counts, it's what you do in between what you do that allows you to show up doing what you do. That's the important thing. And that's what I want to talk about today. As I said, I think we have a lot of focus on it, and a lot of people have a lot of focus. In the world, there's a lot of focus on being better at what you do, about achieving more, about better time management, about productivity, about all that sort of stuff, about making sure we set the temperatures to the right temperature so that we achieve maximal productivity. But who here can sort of relate to this sort of experience? So you go to work, you've got a report that you have to get in by a certain time, by midday, and you're way behind. You should have done it last week. You get that in just in time, and you have to go into a performance meeting because over the past few weeks you haven't been doing something that you were supposed to be doing, and you know that, and so you go into that meeting, and then you go from that. You've still got your emails to clear, and then you've got to make some phone calls, and you've got to do that, and then you've got to go back and clear your emails, and then you've got to deal with a client who's really annoyed with you, and then you jump in your car and you head home and you battle the traffic, and you eventually get home where you have to make dinner, feed the kids, then help the kids with the homework. You have to figure out what was trigonometry from back when you were 15 years old, and now you have to become an expert at it again, and then you have to put the kids to bed, and one doesn't want to go to bed, one doesn't want to have a bath, the other one's painting the walls, and eventually you get them to bed, and there's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of screaming. You manage to have a little bite of dinner, and then you've got to dust off the work that you decided, the additional learning because you needed a challenge in your life, and then you get to go to bed. And at that point your partner decides this is the perfect time to talk about some of the issues in your relationship, which takes you through till after midnight, and then you eventually get to go to sleep, only to be woken up an hour later because one of the kids has had a wheeze leak, and you got to go in and change the sheets. And then you go back to bed and you start thinking about the report that was actually due to the next day, and then the alarm goes at 5:30 and you're back into it all again. Who can relate to that sort of thing? So, fundamentally, our lives have changed. We can't necessarily work any harder. We can't necessarily fit more things in. And the boundaries between things have changed completely, haven't they? The boundaries between work and home and partners and kids and lifestyle, they're all blurred. And so we have to learn to be able to rapidly transition between different environments and show up at our best in each of those environments. And this, I think, is what people don't necessarily do well, because they go from thing to thing to thing to thing. So they end up stacking, and ultimately they start getting worse and worse and worse in each one. And you've got that sort of the stress that goes with all that. And there's the missing piece is what I call the gap. It's that little piece of space, of time between what you do. That is what I call the gap. This is the transition period. And it's what you do with that transition period that I think is a really important bit. That's what allows you to show up at your best in each one. I think the gap is in today's world. Today's world isn't going to change. We're going to get more and more demands on ourselves. We're going to get more things pulling us in different directions. Email and phone and this and that and people, and we're going to get more and more. That isn't going to change. All of a sudden we're not going to go back to carving wood and selling it to our neighbours. So a competitive advantage that you can develop right now is the ability to transition between things. If you develop the ability to transition from one thing to the next, one completely different thing to another completely different thing, and to do that in a way that allows you to show up at your best in each one, that becomes a competitive advantage in today's world. The gap is the bit that allows you, I think, to be resilient. The gap is the bit that allows you to get over what you've been through and then to show up for the next thing with the emotions, beliefs, behaviours, attitude that you need to perform at your best. This is what separates elite athletes from everyone else. When I was, as a professional skier, I can remember there were a lot of really good skiers. And, I was one of them. But I was consistently winning competitions. And because of that, I became the national champ. And it wasn't necessarily because I was the best skier. It was because I could show up and perform at my best every single time. What allowed me to do that was not just how I skied. We were all really good skiers. What allowed me to do that was what I did between runs. What I did between doing one run, and no matter if that went well or badly, able to reset and show up at my best for the next run. And what I would do is I would reflect on the previous run. So I would have a run, I'd reflect what went well, what didn't go well, what would I do more of, what would I do less of, what were the snow conditions like, what was the course like, what could I essentially learn from it, what am I grateful for, what went really well in that run. And then I would take some time, I would pause, I'd reset, I would relax deeply and calm my mind. And then I would say, how do I need to show up for the next run? How do I need to show up at my best so that my next run is the best run I could possibly do? And because I was able to do that, and none of the other guys were doing it, they're all standing around talking, smoking joints, banging Red Bull away, whatever it was, but they're doing that. I showed up differently. And because I did that, I was able to consistently beat them. In the Nationals, which is the biggest competition I wanted to win, which is the National Extreme Ski Champs, there were 4 runs over 2 days, so 2 runs on each day. And I'd been working for this all season and training and doing the mindset, and I was out every morning doing my incantations, and I was physically ready, and I'd spent the entire previous week on the course memorizing every single bit of it. I was absolutely ready, and I tanked my first run. I had a shocker, and I got to the bottom, and I was like, man, that's not going to win this comp for me. And because of all the pressure and all that sort of stuff I placed on myself, I didn't apply the gap prior to the first run. I didn't do that well. So at that point, I just increased the pressure on myself. I had to perform, because then it's 3 out of 4 runs count. So I had to perform on the next run of that day, and then both runs the following day. I couldn't have a fall. I couldn't make a single mistake for the rest of the competition, or I was out. Generally in the competition, what you want to do is put together a good run for the first one, so you've got a base. Then you can push it a little harder in the other ones, and by the time you get to the 4th run, you want to have 3 good runs under you, so you can just absolutely go hell for leather in the final run. And if you land it, you land it. If you don't, you don't. But if you land it, you win. And I didn't have that option. So first run, tanked it. What did I do? Reflected on it. Reflected on the snow. Reflected on the run. Took some time. Relaxed deeply. How do I need to show up for the next run, and then the next run, and then the next run? And I put together 3 great runs, and I won the competition. So it was what I did between that counted. Any one of a number of skiers could have won on the day if they put together their best runs. But it's what I did between it that helped me. And essentially, it's not just elite athletes. I've studied it in other sports as well, in tennis, in many other sports. It's what people do between sets, between rounds. Golfers, it's what you do between the swings that counts. But anyone can use it. Salespeople going from one call to another, recruiters going from one call to another, having a really tough call and then dusting yourself off, getting ready for the next one. Managers going from a really difficult meeting, we might be managing performance of someone, to another meeting where you might be rewarding success, and being able to go from that one to another without bringing the baggage from the original one. People, parents transitioning from home or from work back to home. Even parents transitioning from being a parent to being a partner later on in the evening. Transitioning between things, anyone can use it. And essentially, I think it's really, really powerful, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. The gap is a 3-step process, and it's from what I learned in skiing. The first step is ponder, reflect back. The next step is pause, take a moment, and then the 3rd step is prepare. How do you need to show up for the next event? And what I've done at times in my life is forgotten about this, and I just done the 3rd bit, which is prepare. So you go from one thing, it's like, right, change state, go into the next one. And the problem there is you stack. By using this really simple process, you're able to actually release and then move forward. So, I'm going to go through it. The first step is ponder. This is where you just take some time to reflect. You look back, and the best way to reflect, I think, is to ask questions. And so there are a number of questions that I'll ask that help me to get what I need from the previous situation and release it. Because I think our brains hold on to things because we haven't learned the lesson. You know, if we take the lesson from something, our brain's like, cool, don't need to live in the past anymore. So what have I learned? So I've gone through a real challenge. What have I learned from that? You know, what would I do differently next time? What did I do great? What did I do badly? What could I have improved on, essentially, is that question. And what do I need to do to be prepared for what's coming? You know, I think often we also don't, if we don't get the lesson is, what am I going to do differently next time? What do I need to do to prepare? And then what's great about this? And those are the questions I'll ask myself. I try and suck every little thing out of the previous situation. I try and learn everything I possibly could from it. This doesn't take very long, but I think it's really important. A great thing to do when you're doing this, if you've got time, is to journal it, to write it down. Write down the lessons. And also to actually write down what you're grateful for about this. Because I think gratitude is a key part to releasing the past and moving forward into the future. So essentially, this step can be really quick. It's what can I suck from it in terms of learnings, and what can I be grateful for? The next bit you can then move into is pause. Pausing is when you stop. You take some time, you relax deeply, you reset. It's time dependent. If you haven't got much time, as often you don't when you transition from thing to thing, you have always got time to take 4 breaths. What I'll do if I've got very little time is I'll take 4 deep diaphragmatic breaths. So that's when you breathe in through your stomach. So do it with me now. Put your hand on your stomach and just relax and take a deep breath. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in for a 4 count. Hold it for a moment and breathe out for a 4 count. And then do it again. In, 2, 3, 4, pause, out, 2, 3, 4. 2 more. Breathe in deeply. And out. And one last one. Inhale deeply, using your abdomen. Hold it for a second, and then breathe out. Okay, and open your eyes. Who can feel that they relax just in that moment by taking 4 breaths? I'm seeing a show at nodding heads. I'm assuming there's nodding heads in Australia too. It took 4 breaths. This is not a stressful environment. You're sitting down, but you can still relax deeper by just taking 4 breaths. If that's all the time you've got, just do that. If you've got a little bit more time, you might take a short walk. You might meditate for 5 minutes or 10 minutes if you do that. If you've got longer time, you might do a workout, go for a run, whatever it is. But the key in this point here is that you pause. You take a moment, and then you're ready to move into the next bit, which is prepare. Prepare is, how do I need to show up in the next event? How do I need to show up consciously in the next event? So I consciously make a choice as to how I'm going to show up as a person. Now, how you're going to show up is your state, the state that you're in. Now, state is essentially, I think it's 3 things. I learned this from Tony Robbins. One part of it is your physiology. You know, it's how you're holding your body. It's how you're breathing. It's what you've been eating and drinking that day. But essentially, you can control your physiology. If you put yourself in a physiology where you just, shoulders forward, sort of hang your head, put a grumpy, sad look on your face. You should do this with me. That's it. You in Australia too, just do it. And sigh. Who's feeling at their best? No one. Are they? So, and then try another one. Sit up straight. Put a smile on your face. Sit up with some energy in your chair. Do you notice a change? There is a change. There's a nodding heads here. And again, I hallucinate nodding heads in Australia. But it's really simple. It's choose how you're going to hold your body. You know, if you are in a situation where you come out of a meeting and you are really stressed, you're really tense, and you don't change that, and you go home, how are you going to think you're going to show up as a partner or as a parent? Probably not in the way you need to, are you? So that's one thing. the physiology you're holding yourself in. The next bit is your focus. What are you focusing on? You know, when I travel from work to home, it's a very short drive. But I ask myself some questions. And I focus on something different. I'm like, what is great about my girls? So Claire, Zara and Florence. And I'm just like, how lucky am I to have these girls in my life? How lucky am I to get to go home now and I've got an hour and a half to spend with my 3 favourite people, and then I ask, well, how can I make that hour and a half really special? How can I create some magic moments in it? How can this not just be dinner and bath time, but this is magic time with my kids and Claire? And that puts me in a different, focusing in a different way from, I've got to get home and do dinner and bath and blah, 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 blah. So it completely changes things. And then the language that you use is another way to affect your state. Going home saying I have to go home and feed the kids dinner and give them a bath. Or I get to go home and be with the people who are my favourite people in the world and have dinner and bath with my little ones. I mean, how good is that? And it changes me completely. So I choose the state that I want to show up in when I get home. So if I've had a really tough day at the office, I can, in that short period of time, reflect on the day. What did I learn? Take a moment, do some deep abdominal breaths, and then consciously choose how I'm going to show up for the next event. And it's really, really powerful. I was a few months ago, I had this thing on my head, and I was like, I've been fiddling with it for a while. And I went to the doctor, and I was like, I got this thing on my head, have a look at it. And they had a look at it, and they go, yeah, that could be cancer. We're going to take a biopsy now, and then we'll get results back in a week. And I was like, right. This is where you got to practice what you learn. And so I could have spent that week freaking out. I could have spent that week worried about it all the time. I could have let that impact how I was going to show up. But what it is, I use the gap. I practice the gap. Practice what I'm teaching you today. And that's essentially ponder. Okay, what have I learned from this? Okay, the earlier you've got a concern, go and see the doctor, the better. What have I learned from this? Well, I haven't really been wearing hats in summer very much, and I probably could have done better. I could do better actually about looking after myself. What's great about this? Well, at least I've gone and seen the doctor early and we're going to get an answer. All right, what can I be grateful for? Well, I can be grateful for the fact that I am in good health, and if there's anything that's going on, I've got the belief that I can handle it. Next thing is just pause. Take some deep breaths, relax, and then consciously choose, all right, how do I need to show up? I need to show up for that week confident. I need to show up for that week certain. I need to show up in that week grateful. And then I could have a great week. Got the results, wasn't cancer, fine. So essentially, but essentially that was, potentially this is, a melanoma or something in your head that could, I've known a lot of people who've died from melanoma. So it gave me the tools to take a really potentially difficult situation and not have it negatively impact my life for that week. So, performance and fulfillment are related. To perform better, we don't necessarily need to set bigger goals. We don't necessarily need to stretch ourselves more, put more pressure on ourselves. Sometimes we do, but sometimes we don't. I think to increase happiness and performance, it's just as important what we do between things in that transition, in the gap, as to what we do at the time of the events. That gap, I believe, is what allows us to show up at our best in the next event. And I think, as people know, this world is only going to get busier. Your lives are only going to get busier. You're only going to start getting pulled in more and more directions. And you know that as when you get married and then you have kids and you do all these different things. You just start getting more and more things pulling you in different directions in your life. And essentially, I think one of the greatest things we can do, one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves, one of our greatest competitive advantages is to learn how to transition rapidly and effectively between things. And I think by doing that, it allows us A, to show up at our best, and B, to actually be a lot less stressed and to enjoy ourselves a lot more, because we're able to be fully present in whatever we're doing, as opposed to still stuck in the thing before and the thing before that and the thing before that and the thing last week. It allows us to actually transition as opposed to hold on and just add more and more and more and more weight to our shoulders. It allows us to keep that spring in our step, to feel light, to show up and be our best. And I think essentially it allows us to be the best we can be. It allows us to be the best husbands, the best wives, the best partners, the best parent, the best, recruiter, the best, placement coordinator, the best COO, the best whoever it is we need to be, the best athlete. It's all available to us. And I believe that it is available not just in what we do, but in what we do in between. It's available in the gap. So, really quick session this time. To me, I think it's been really, really powerful. It's really impacted my life in a really positive way. So I wanted to share it with you guys. And if you've got any questions, now's the time to ask. About maybe how you might utilise it in your life. If you've got any concerns about it, if you've got any concerns about the process or anything like that. Why don't we throw it to New Zealand first and Australia? If you think of anything, then we'll come to you too. So anyone here got any questions about it? Comments, queries? No? All pretty clear? I think the key essentially is to practice this and to learn it. You're not going to be perfect at it from the start. So essentially it's just when you go away from here, you're going to transition to all sorts of different things. Just practice it. Remember, ponder. What have I learned? What could I have done better? What went well? What am I going to do differently next time? What do I need to do to be prepared for next time? What's great about this? Pause. Just take some deep breaths. Take a moment just to reset and then consciously choose to prepare and choose the state you need to show up in to perform in the next thing that you've got. Any questions from Australia? No, the thing about it is it's really, really simple. And so I'm not surprised there's not any questions. It's not a complicated concept, but it is really, really powerful. And I think that I'd really encourage you to go away and use it, because I think the more you use it, the more you'll find it impactful in your life. Remember, it takes 30 days to create a habit. So consciously, if you think this is of value to you, write something to remind yourself to use this, and just use it on a regular basis for the next 30 days. And I'm sure that you'll find it so valuable that it'll become part of how you live. And I think that will become a competitive advantage to you. So thanks for being here today. These sessions are obviously optional, and the fact that you choose to show up, is a reflection of your commitment to your own personal mastery. So I applaud that. I applaud you wanting more in your life. I applaud you looking for ways and tools and strategies to actually create more in your life. And I'm confident this will be one of them. So thank you for your time. That's all. Thanks, Australia.